So we're glad to have him tonight, and we've also asked him to tell us a little bit more about what he's other projects he's got going on at that, including the Day Herald
Yes.
and Hinman Place.
Yes.
Yes. So I'll just turn it over to the EW.
Thank you.
In Jane Chambers' place?
Well, actually, I took Mandy Hornsby's place, who took Jane Chambers' place.
Who took Morella's place?
Who took, well, and that's a perfect place to start. I am with Harrison County Library System, and I am the local history and genealogy librarian. Now, why do I say Harrison County Library System? In 1976, Biloxi became part of the Harrison County Library System. And for me to say I am at Biloxi Library, that is simply my location. Because after Katrina, they consolidated the genealogy departments because Gulfport had one and Biloxi had one. And it made more sense to combine all of our resources into one place. And the city of Biloxi built a specialized archive room and everything to retain our collection.
Unfortunately, it was on the first floor, wasn't it?
Yeah, luckily the new building is done all to FEMA specs. We even have hurricane proof in the building, which I think is a misnomer. I think hurricane resistant is a better way to term it, but that's okay. Everybody that has held my position has done something different for the library system. Morella started it, Jamie saw it through Katrina, Miss Jane saw it through 3 different buildings and into our modern facility. Mandy started us into the digital age, which we are about 23 years late, but we are in it now. And so my goal is to make sure that the library represents the entire community. Because in the past, and there we go, back to our regularly scheduled program. So each one of us that have had leadership of the department has changed it and added to it. And I have been with the department 10 years, but I officially took the lead in January. Mandy is now the historic administrator for the city of Biloxi. So we still get to work together and continue our partnership. But today, what I would like to talk to you about how we have changed the department. We are now into the digital age. And this is our website. Now, like I said, we're still in Biloxi, but we started a system called Montage. And what Montage is our digital database, and it is very easy to get to. So you have this blue banner here. You go to e-services. Pardon me, I am doing this. There we go. E-services. Now under e-services, you go down to, you have 2 things that are really good on e-services. You have Newsbank, which is our transcription service that has a transcription of every article from the newspaper from 1994 to the present. And with your library card, you can log on to that from home. So you don't have to come to the library to use it. You can log on from home. Now also on here is the Local History and Genealogy Archive. By clicking that takes you to our montage. Okay, now, montage is a wonderful resource for research, and it takes a little patience to use it, because if it is an extremely large file like a yearbook, it takes a little bit more time to load up. So what you do, you start it. If you're going to go down memory lane, get a glass of wine, click it, and let it load. So we have all kinds of different designations. We have our yearbooks, we have promotional publications, yearbooks, and we try to make things as simple as possible, because when you make things a little too difficult, you're going to find it complicates things. So we have organizations and club publications, and that is going to be like Mardi Gras Cruise. We have garden clubs, the Cleveland Club and all that. We have all that. Roads and Streets, Arts and Music, scrapbooks. We loaded some cool ones recently. For example, let's go open. Okay, so in this is several of our recent items. Albert Bruni's owned a restaurant called Abby's Little Diner. He was also a jazz musician from New Orleans. He was a part of the early formation of Dixieland, the white version of Dixieland. And I'm just letting you know. So when you click on this, see this blue bar that shows you it's loading? And then you have three options. You can view it like this, or you can click this little arrow like that, and it makes it bigger, or you can go to that little play button right here, and it'll go full screen, and you can use your arrow buttons to make it go. Now, the cool thing about Abby Bruni's was had two other brothers, Merritt and George. Merritt played the trumpet like Albert, and then George played the trombone. So you get to see he was a prolific photographer. He took pictures of everything, and you get to see the earliest incarnations of his restaurant in this one.
What year is that?
This one is from 1947 to 1953. And when we get collections like this, it is important to go through it thoroughly, because you never know what you're going to find in the backgrounds of these images. So you get to see how it went from a little ham trailer, and you see what their life, because when they moved into the Bay Terrace, which is the area next to Keesler, when they moved, there was nothing but pine trees. Bay Terrace had only existed for 20 years, and most of it was sold off to pay for Keesler. So you get to see the world as he experienced it. But what's really cool is when somebody tells you a story. Like, my grandma told me a story about the Hadacol. Do you remember what Hadacol was? It was a patent medicine made by Dudley LeBlanc, and it was named Hadacol because he had to call it something.
A lot of alcohol.
And it was mostly alcohol. So when my grandma told me about it, I was like, let's look this up. Well, Dudley LeBlanc would go to these little towns and say, oh, I'm coming to town and I'm bringing all these people. He would bring Minnie Pearl, Hank Williams, Cesar Romero, all to come down and entertain. So in this album is, you know, all different things, but in the back of it, so this was a Fireman's Day parade, and this ties into what we're working on, because what our grant is twofold. We are doing oral histories and a program called Urban Archive. What Urban Archive is a map system, and I'm going to show you shortly, when you go to this, you can click on a little button and it'll pop up what's there. So it's mostly for architecture. But what I want to show you is in here in the back of this one. So, Hadacol. When the Hadacol parade came, they had this. I wouldn't have known what this was if I wouldn't have did my research on Hadacol. These were the balloons that were brought to the Hadacol parade. So he had this big parade that would lead everybody to the central location where the concerts and stuff happened. So it's great for somebody to walk in and give you something that solidifies a story that somebody told you that was their recollection. I don't know why this keeps popping up. So now we also have our yearbooks on here.
I have a question.
Yes.
You scan the scrapbooks.
Yes.
Do you take the pictures out of the scrapbooks to archive them?
I left these together because there is so much writing in it.
Okay.
There's so much writing in it, I'm scared to take it out. Diligence, my due diligence would be to completely remove them from the pages, because when paper switched from cotton pulp and flax to being pine pulp, it created a very cheap paper, but it also made a very destructive paper as well. So we also on here is our different finding aids and stuff like that, because we have excellent indexes on here. So we have indexes to Coast Magazine. We have an index to Down South Magazine, Morella Powell's Flashbacks, South Mississippi Living, you know, that sort of thing. But our yearbooks, we just did Gulfport East. So, and all you have to do is go to here. Let's see if they add We're going to give me everything but what I want. Anyway. Yes, so let's say we're just going to use Ocean Springs to make it easy. So see how long it's taking? Because in the digital age, we're used to this, and we have no patience anymore. So here it goes, it's almost there. And when you switch, and that one's only 112 pages, the larger the file, the slower it is. And the same idea, we still go to that, and you get the yearbook. So these were donated by Ray Belandi to us because he went to an estate sale, and they had all these, and he bought them and donated them to us. So you get the same quality, but people aren't handling it too much, so it's going to be less likely to deteriorate. Now, with our grant paid for Urban Archive. So this is what Urban Archive looks in New York. Now, having more people in that 1 6-mile space than our entire state, we get to, ours is not going to be as tight as theirs. So what you do is you go in, and so let's go to this little dot right here. So 349 3rd Avenue, and you click it. So what you get is the image of that over here and the information that goes with it. So sometimes the I'm not used to doing it from that side. So what you get is the image and the citation with it. So for here you have what the picture shows is 349, 351, 353, 355 3rd Avenue, New York City, around 1920. And then you get who it belongs to. So that image is stored at the New York Historical Society. So your images are still notated as being part of your collection. Now, this is a sample of ours. This is only the first round of images that they got. I recently sent them 887 images. So this lonely little dot right here is Gulfport. The one Gulfport that we had in the first round. Come on now. So you get all the way there. There we go, that's the one. So this is 2204 30th. So 2204 30th now.
Street.
30th. I want to make sure because that street and avenue thing, it gets kind of fiddly. So this image is part of the Harrison collection. For those of you who are not familiar with Biloxi, Harrison Realty is one of the oldest realtors in the city, having been founded in 1898. Now, when Mr. Charlie died, his brother, who inherited the business, said, look, we have all these images. If you want them, come and get them. And what these images are from are rental houses and the houses that they sold and rented, which is important to me because not every family could afford to own a house. So when somebody is trying to find, I want a picture of my grandpa's house. This was an important collection because the collection has close to 2,000 images in the one collection of these different houses. And when you rent and not own, you don't have the luxury of always having a picture of your home. And this is an important collection to me personally, because even my childhood home is in it. So getting to see that means a lot to me. So, and sometimes if it's a house where something important happened, even if something important didn't happen, we can go through and add who lived there. So when you go, yes, this is Gulfport.
So what is that?
This is the rental house that the people had. Let's see if I can make it go all the way up.
And what time frame?
This is going to be in the 1970s. But the collection itself has pictures from the 1920s in it. And all that.
1975, right?
Hmm?
It had a 1975 date.
Oh, yeah. So it's going to be, the best thing I can do is label something by what the image quality is like, what cars are in the image, that sort of thing. Because, yeah,
So basically, in Gulfport, that's the only one we have.
for now, we are also adding our city's collection that is going to have Gulfport in it, and downtown. There's a great picture of downtown Gulfport, and I managed to date it by a movie poster, which is really cool.
Now, as in Biloxi, I see that you have a lot of work.
Yeah.
Now, in Biloxi, East Biloxi, the African American community, are there any pictures that are actually going to be able
Yes.
to? So there are.
Yes, and that,
Charles Harrison rented to a lot of African.
yes, yes he did, and that is why that also leads into the other half of our grant.
Charles T. Harrison.
Oh yes. He told me once about a story about his grandpa. His grandpa, in the newspaper, he was having a dispute with one of his renters. His renter would not pay him, so he pulled out a pistol and went, book, and shot him in the legs. Is that the best thing to do? No, we don't settle disagreements that way. So, oh yeah. So, like, let's look at 696 Division Street. So 696, oh perfect. This is going to have two images. This is the gas station and service station that was at the corner of Main and Division. So we have two different eras. You have this in the 90s, which I wish would have popped up first. And then this, oh, come on. This was what it looked like in the 70s. So it helps you track the growth of a city, and it gives you a clue into what was happening and how time changed in the area. But this is also the other part of our grant is oral histories. The collection of history is a tenuous one because for the longest time in the area, people collected what was asked for. And not all communities were represented in that collection. And it is our duty as modern historians to make sure that everybody's story is told, regardless of what it is, good, bad, and ugly. And that's my opinion of it. We have to do our due diligence and make sure that our community is represented in all facets. And so what the other half of our grant is, our grant was funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities through Climate Change Resilience grants. So the grant had specific parameters that any community that is to be affected by climate change, rising water levels, catastrophic hurricanes, all of that, to document as much of the community as we can before something bad happens. Now, in this grant, I will be going to different churches in the community and starting there and getting as many oral histories and scanning as many images as I can that people feel free to share with me. Because when you are collecting, not everybody's ready to give their stuff to you, which is fine. I would rather have a copy of it. Because if something bad happens, for example, Bayou Augusta is one of our areas that we're focusing on. I grew up on the north side of Bayou Augusta. And when my mom's house got hit by Katrina, she got 8 feet of water in her house.
And what year was that?
2005 with Katrina.
So, and a minute ago, you were showing some pictures of what, 47?
No, I haven't showed any. I haven't showed anything for 47 yet. But this application will help make it available for everyone, because everyone will be able to see this. And growing up in the Bayou Augusta area, I have a unique option of knowing everyone, because I grew up with all of them and their children. And so I have to use my connections that are already in the community to hopefully entice people to share with me. This project serves 2 things. If somebody decides to share their images with us, we scan them, create a collection, and should something happen to their original images in some way, they can always come to the library and get the entire grouping so they will be able to reproduce it for themselves. Because in Camille, everybody lost everything. My fuel container rolled over my grandparents' house, and I managed to find those pictures of my stuff today. So it's about documenting everything as much as we can. I love this project. This was my part of the grant. Because it tells architectural history and it will encapsulate these communities as people live them. So
this is the pictorial.
This is the pictorial part.
It's not all.
No, not this part. The other part, the oral histories, will be going on montage. There will be a digital format for them to go on montage, and everybody will be able to listen to them from there.
And so how accessible will that be?
Montage is free. Everybody who has a computer can go right to it.
So I guess my question is, how will people know that it's there?
Through a significant blanketing of publicity. And it will always be available. Like, when I go into the communities to talk to people about their lives and their experience, they will get a copy of the oral history. There is a list of questions that I will give to every person before we do it, so they can look at the questions, and if they are uncomfortable with any of the questions, they can tell me that I'm not comfortable with number 5, I'm not comfortable with number 6, or whatever, because I want this to be as easy a process for our community as possible. Yes, ma'am?
So you haven't started them yet?
Not yet, because I wanted to get this started first, and then start having my meetings in the month of June, and then carry out from there. It's a lot of work that I got saddled with when I took the job. I was ready to be doing this. This was my half, but now I have a whole of it, and I have to make sure everything goes on. And I have 2 years.
So,
How do you, specific areas are?
Yes, Hansborough is highlighted, Langley Point in D'Iberville, Bayou Augusta in Biloxi, and the Delisle area.
The what?
Delisle over in Pass Christian. These are areas that are connected to waterways that are most susceptible to flooding.
But
And-
these areas were designated after hurricane,
These areas were designated by FEMA after Katrina.
Katrina.
And because Bernard Bayou and Hansborough are so enmeshed with each other, we are including Hansborough in with that.
Is there a map of what you,
Yes, ma'am. I do not have it with me, but I do have a map.
And that's the map that was drawn by FEMA.
Yes. And then,
And that's the one, is that the one that left, they pulled up to, from Biloxi up to up to the Reed Road, and then it skipped over Hansborough, Mississippi City.
I'm not
and
sure.
Designated Miss McNary and designated.
Oh, no.
City.
This is a different, the map that was in the grant packet is a different map. These are areas that were designated through FEMA, not, and Turkey Creek is also included. It's not that FEMA skipped anybody with this project. This is why it was so important to connect the water.
I'm just,
It's okay, Ms.
I'm
Pat.
just.
because it had to do with waterways.
Yeah, because
And it, yeah.
it's okay, Ms. Pat, you can share.
No, I understand, but there is some concern
Yes,
that
ma'am.
the map that FEMA drew left out when we're talking about areas that were impacted
Yes.
from the water and cause the climate change. They left out some of the community.
And that's why I'm doing that. I want to work with you and all the other churches in the area to make sure they are covered with our history.
So do you need volunteers from this area?
For connections, yes. Because, quite frankly, we'll be honest, I am an outsider to your community. I'm from Biloxi, and we know Biloxi and Gulfport has been at loggerheads for longer than most of us have been alive. So it's important for me to go in and make connections with the communities that we are going to be interviewing, because I want everyone to be able to trust me. That's more important to me than anything else, because I want to make sure that the communities are served accurately. So,
Do you have a time frame for what you're doing?
the last June is going to be meetings. I sold my house behind the Treasure Bay to get away from this. more than I paid for it. And I bought another house the next day. Anyway, but the areas were preordained by the National Endowment of the Humanities. But we are adding to the areas just to, make sure that we get as much as we can for our department, for the history of it. Any other questions? Ms. Pat, anytime you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask me. I am not, you know that I am not one to play games or anything like that.
So how does this affect the Gulfport?
Well, and what, that picture that you flashed us, it has to be determined whether we're talking about 30 seconds.
Oh, no. That was just the location of that one house.
Now, was that 32nd Street?
30th.
It's, let's go back to it.
Because there's two.
Yes, that's exactly my thing.
There's two over in Mississippi City behind Party Court.
Yes.
We saw East Park. There's also some 37
Yes.
streets in there. So
Yes.
that.
So what?
That's the record.
Rude!
That's a record. With that too, number 3.
I'm telling you, if that port didn't make Gulfport so much money, I ain't complain.
Sometimes we don't hear a train home.
Well, today was not the day. But Urban Archive is not part of this specific mapping. Urban Archive is every picture we have, regardless if it's in the grouping or not, in the designated area or not, it's getting put on. So when, let's say, Ms. Pat, if you decide to share your images of your home with us, and you can opt in to participate with this, because some people are private, they don't want to participate in this part of it. So if you have old pictures of your family homes, the house you grew up in, your house that you raised your family in, you could opt to share it with us and put it on here.
And that doesn't have anything to do with the grant.
It is part of the grant.
Oh.
It's just, this is not restricted by the grant. The area the photos that we get of the buildings is not restricted by the parameters of the
Oral
grant.
history that is.
Yes, the oral histories are. I'm sorry, I didn't explain that thoroughly. The oral histories, but if you live outside of Hansborough and you want to participate, I'm perfectly fine with it.
But the questions you're asking oral history wise have to do with the flooding?
No,
No.
it has to do with how you experience living in that area. So,
And what kind of frame?
your existence, it's your experience in these communities.
What you can remember.
Yeah, what you can remember.
But I mean, it's got to have a start.
I want to know about growing up in Hansborough. I want to know about growing up in Turkey Creek. I want to know about that because, for example, one of our oral histories that was done in 1975 was a lady named Pearl Lee Atkinson. She grew up in Hansborough when she was a child, and she talked about swimming in the bayou, and she talked about the water, which was important because when she grew up in the 1910s, she said the water was completely different than it is currently because of industrial shipping. When they dug the channels, they stirred up all the silt. So as industrial shipping comes through, it keeps the silt stirred up, which keeps our water a very unflattering shade of brown. Brackish. Because like Mr. Gibbs at Biloxi High, the marine biology said, brackish water is good water. So, but the oral histories it doesn't necessarily, there's a loose questionnaire of what we want to know, but it can go by ear. We can just talk about whatever you feel like talking about. If it happens to be a part of it, great. I don't want to pigeonhole myself and miss a portion of your experience because of a questionnaire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What do you want to know?
I'm going to...
This questionnaire.
I'm going to...
We can go at this.
Yes, ma'am.
On. What do you want to know?
What I want to know is...
Are there standards,
Yes.
for oral history?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And that's the whole point
What's
of...
the criteria?
The criteria is, who were your parents? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What schools did you go to? What churches did you attend? And that's because to get a picture of your world as you lived it, that is the whole point. Because, again, I grew up on Bayou Augusta. I didn't grow up in Hansborough. I know very little about Hansborough outside of a sawmill that the Leiners had in 1860. That's what I know. And part of this is helping me understand your world. That is it. Did you, for example, the Knights of Pythias Hall, did you ever attend any function there? Because I know y'all, the Knights of Pythias hosted dances and all that. What were those like? Who played there? What bands? What kind of music was popular when you went there? That is what I want to know.
So you should have a blank question, what do you want me to know?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I started to print out all of it, and I didn't, which is my neglect.
Maybe you can share some of this information.
Yes, I will.
I thought the grant would have had some.
No, ma'am.
Before
No, ma'am.
and after.
They went, here's the money, figure it out.
Wow.
And I'm the one.
How much do you want to get?
I got $48,000, which bought this laptop. It paid for transcription services. It paid for Urban Archives. Urban Archives, there's two different plans. There's $250 a month and there's $500 a month. A month. But they will work with you on grant, but you just have to talk to them. They are completely amiable. I have had nothing but positive interactions with these folks. It is expensive, but it is worth it. The grant paid for it. And so you can write, for example, National Endowment for the Humanities. I mean, the Mississippi Humanities Council. You can write up a $2,000 grant or a $20,000, up to $20,000, and get this paid for. It is not an insurmountable task.
We'll want you to keep up with us.
Absolutely.
It just seems unfathomable to not to have a beginning of grant and say we're going to start it in.
Oh, we had it, Miss
We have
Patty.
to have this finished.
Maybe you could share.
It is. It started in October of 2023 and it ends in December of 2025. So I'm sorry if I didn't specify that, but it's a lot of work, and it seems insurmountable, but I believe I can do it.
I appreciate it. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for you.
And
Tell us real quickly, and then you can wait after.
No, go ahead.
You have a couple of other large collections.
Yes, we have, what recently came through is the Sun Herald collection. The Sun Herald collection was the library that the journalists used in the Sun Herald. So in these files, any topic, now it is finite, but any topic that you can think of, we can try and find. There is any main topic of the day, and not every file is a winner, but there are great images in it. Now, there are stipulations on the images. The images can only be used by nonprofits.
Now, this is not copies of newspaper.
Some of it is.
Okay.
There's,
And you're scanning it.
I am working on the images. It's a constant process because the room is about 2/3 the size of this room and completely filled with filing cabinets. Filing cabinets filled with newspaper.
Is any of it accessible now?
Yes, it is absolutely accessible now.
On your...
Not online, not yet, because it's thousands and thousands and thousands of file folders with little tiny fiddly pieces of newspaper, and we're going to write a grant to get that shipped out to be digitized by somebody else. Yes, sir.
Earlier you were speaking about I think the newspaper, was that from 90-something on?
Yes, Newsbank.
Now, I do a lot of technology
Yes, sir.
research. Matter of fact, I've seen you.
I've seen you in the department.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, when are you going to go back like into the 70s, 60s, to get that?
Those are available on a website called newspapers.com. Unfortunately, you have to, it's a private subscription. They don't offer institutional subscriptions, and it is cost prohibitive for institutions.
Isn't there a free search, family search or something like that that's done through the Mormon Church?
Yes.
Yeah.
Family search.
Yes,
Yes.
There is some information, like for example, like certain families, like
Yeah.
the social, you can find
Yeah.
information from that. But I guess in a way I'm trying to get around that little amount you just paid for the music.
Yeah. So I do as a courtesy, if, for example, Biloxi and Gulfport both have the Sports Hall of Fame. If you catch me on a good day, and I'm feeling generous, I will go on my private subscription and help people get dates. So, and because I'm interested in getting the information out as quickly as possible, because I got big projects going on and I want people to get what they need.
What is the status of the Hinman collection?
Hinman collection, I am down to one drawer of negatives left. Now, what happens with us is every time we get something and we get a minute to do something, something gets on top of us.
So is it accessible on digital?
No.
Tell me.
It is not accessible.
Tell me what the Hinman collection is.
The Hinman collection is the negative files of Chauncey Hinman. He was a professional commercial photographer in Gulfport. He lived over on
In Bayou.
Bayou on Kendall. And his family donated it to our library after had been resided in very inhospitable circumstances.
Jim Miller played the part.
I found that as a matter of fact.
Huh?
I found that collection.
He
Oh,
found
yeah?
it, Jim Miller found the collection.
Yeah.
And it was, it eventually ended up.
Yeah.
We
And
have some photographs
Yes.
from the collection that were.
Hinman was a very prolific photographer. And what I don't think, when I did the grant for that, I focused on the tourism industry because I worked in the tourism industry for years. So in that, you get to see how the coast changed because he was active from 1950 to 1983. So you get to see Biloxi and Gulfport as they changed through the multiple phases of the tourism.
We've got some limited collections, like photographs that he did for, like the chamber in the
Yes.
70s. We've got, so that's available.
And so those images are available for people to look at. It's just not online.
Right. And that's what our goal is, to make everything as.
Yes, as accessible as possible.
Okay.
One of the more interesting things is that Hancock Bank and Mississippi Power were two of the biggest employers of him during his time. So, for example, in Hancock Bank, they did monthly reports. So he went and took pictures of all of their holdings. So say they were invested in a place like Primer Electrical over in East Biloxi, and you get to see the women making wiring harnesses for cars. You get to see women making stainless steel kitchen equipment at a different one. You get to see the people at the milk and magnesia plant. At the opening of the milk and magnesia plant, he was there taking pictures of everyone. So
So you have that catalog or inventory?
I have an inventory.
Inventory, okay.
Yes, and it's close to 40,000 images. It was the biggest collection we have gotten since the Walter Fountain collection, when Walter Fountain, the journalist, died. And then right after we got that, we get the Sun Herald. So it's a task with 3 people trying to do these very large projects, and it is scary sometimes. But we're gonna work our way through everything. So.
Thank you for coming tonight. If you didn't sign in when you came in, would you sign in so we can let
Sure.
people know we had a meeting and who was here? And also,
I have some things here.
yes, some things,
And-
information.